Hi guys, this is the advisor and welcome back to the channel of upright men and women. Guys, one of our greatest hero, the epitome of excellence for every law-abiding citizen in this country is about to be free. I'm speaking of none other than the great, the illustrious Chucky Brown, affectionately known to all decent law-abiding citizens as Chucky Brown. Yeah man, it look like Chucky Brown a go do road very soon, probably in a matter of days. Now, I know a lot about this case, but since it is at this sensitive stage, I don't want to say much about it, but suffice it to say that the appeal had been heard a few days ago and judgment has been reserved by the appeal court judges. Now, what does it mean when an appeal court's judgment is reserved? What it simply means is that the judges have heard all sides of the argument and everything that the appellant and his lawyers need to state has been stated and has been exhausted totally and completely. It means that a final decision has not yet been made and the three judges are now going to sit down, go over everything that had been said, all of the evidence that had been brought forward again in this trial or in this appeal case, and after everything has been considered and reconsidered, then a final decision will be made. But for those of you who came in late, who might not know who Chucky Brown is, first of all, why is Chucky Brown in prison? Well, this hero policeman was convicted of 3 cases of murder along with wounding with intent and of course some other minor charges. He was convicted and sentenced to serve a sentence. I don't remember what the full sentence was, but he had to serve 51 years before being eligible for parole, which means that Chucky Brown was to die in prison because at the time he was convicted, Chucky Brown was actually 40 years old or in his 40th year of life, and he was convicted in 2018 and he was sentenced in 2019 at the age of 41. So if he was to serve 51 years, he would be 90 odd when he gets out. Though I think he had been in prison for about 2 years or probably as much as 3 years before his trial. Anyway, which would count against the 51 years. But people don't live under that condition for 90 years. So, the next question is, what were the circumstances which led to Chucky Brown being convicted and given probably the harshest sentence in the history of in the annals of Jamaica's justice system? And the next question, of course, is gonna be, if he had such serious charges, which the judge thought were heinous enough to give him such a sentence, why would I refer to him as a hero policeman? One. But it's not just me. 3/4 of Jamaica sees this man as a hero. And behind the scene, the entire police force is behind the man. And there are ways I could tell you about how this actually manifests itself in his life, in his current life, but I leave that for another time. That's the man's private business. But what led to Chucky Brown being in prison and what were the circumstances? Well, we have a parish in Jamaica called Clarendon. And back in the 2000s, between about 2007 to about 2013, 2014. That parish had gone so far beyond the pale that criminals were just running rampant, and it was the parish with the most murders in Jamaica at that time. No matter what the police did, the police just couldn't stem the level of crime that was happening in Clarendon. And they decided they had to take drastic measures. So they sent in a special team of policemen whose duty was to take care of the situation, nullify the threat to decent, law-abiding citizens, and bring the gunmen to justice. And of course, it was supposed to be swift justice. So, Chucky Brown and his team set to work. And in a matter of weeks, the violence producers in Clarendon started to die in shootouts. And the more these gunmen died in shootouts when they come in contact with the security forces, with Chucky Brown and his men, murders went down drastically in Clarendon. In a matter of months, Clarendon became the second safest parish in the entire island. It's only Portland was ahead of Clarendon when it came to the safety and security of citizens. And it was all thanks to Chucky Brown and his team. And when I say Chucky Brown and his team, Chucky Brown wasn't the head of the team. He was only one of the functionaries within the team. Because, of course, he was a constable. But Chucky Brown was just a mover and a shaker, and one who was quite prepared to take out the trash. Anyway, after a while, a lot of complaints were heard. Indicom came on board, and they found discrepancies in how some of these quote-unquote shootouts had taken place. Chucky Brown and a group of his other men, Chucky Brown, same person, they were arrested and taken to court. Various members of the team were charged for various incidents because there were many cases where they took out trash. Now, them being arrested in and of itself was not the real issue in the tragedy of Chucky Brown. The real tragedy was that all the big wigs who sent these policemen, these constables, these foot soldiers to go and take out the rubbish and created one of the safest zones for decent law-abiding citizens. When Chucky Brown and his team were arrested, the gazetted ranked officers, the privileged few at the top, cut these men loose and left them on their own. The same men that they sent to do the quote-unquote dirty work. When these men caught trouble, the gazetted men who were the movers and the shakers behind these actions just cut them loose. These men spent over a year, some more than 2 years, some more than 3 years, locked away in jail. But eventually, no case submissions were proffered to judges in their case. And in all cases, it's either they were found not guilty or the no case submissions were upheld. Now, what happened for Chucky Brown was that he seemed to be probably the most gullible among the team. And Indicom saw Chucky Brown as a weak fence, somebody who they could manipulate because they wanted something to, they needed a conviction because they had to make it look like they were actually doing a job and that their job was worthwhile. And when they're that desperate for a win or to gain relevancy for themselves, they looked for someone, and that someone they picked was Chucky Brown. They went to Chucky Brown and said, listen man, those men, those gazetted rank officers who cut you loose, who send you to do the quote unquote dirty work and have cut you loose, we want them. So, if you admit to the role you played and tell us the role that they all played, we will drop all charges against you and we will bring those gazetted rank officers to book on conspiracy charges, and we tack on as much of those killings onto them. Now, Chucky Brown, being locked away for several years and knowing that these men had cut him loose after sending him to take out the rubbish, he saw this as his ticket back to freedom. And let's face it, when you're locked away in those conditions for so long and with the uncertainty and the people who you were depending on to defend you had not defended you and had cut you loose, you realized that you were on your own and you had to secure you. And then again, he wanted to get back revenge on those gazetted rank officers who cut him loose. So he accepted the offer. Now, after he admitted to the roles that he played in some of those quote-unquote shootouts and told them which officers, which gazetted rank officers had told them to do what and how the system was worked out and everything, one Englishman named Hamish, can't remember his last name, and the rest of them, they then used this quote-unquote confession as the main evidence and went to court and take Chucky to court and use these affidavits against him to convict him. They did not touch any of the gazetted rank officers who Chucky Brown had named. So it was just the little small man down the corner that everybody picked on. The one who took out the rubbish, they dirtied their own hands while they were in their bed sleeping comfortably under their air condition. Chucky Brown was and his men were out there in the sun, in the wind, in the rain, at nights, losing sleep, walking through mud, hunting down these beasts and taking care of business. You know, sometimes it's hard to understand what justice really is, but I know this was not justice. And Indicom gained a conviction based on the confession, we would call it, that was extracted from Chucky Brown under duress. Well, not really under duress, but based on false promises. We could say that they let Chucky Brown tell lie upon himself, which was in his desperation to get out of the place. So Chucky Brown has been in jail now from about 2016, maybe 2015, I'm not sure, but no. But at 2025, he has been there for at least 10-11 years. I have a very great idea of the angle that the Chucky Brown's lawyers had taken, and most of it concerned the coercion involved in Indicom and how they extracted the confession from him. And since it can be proven that because the main basis for his conviction were the statements he had given to Indicom, who used it to hang back Chucky Brown. So, based on the little I know, you can't coerce a person and lie to them and tell them to confess, and me I go give you this, and then you use it, turn your back on the person, and use it, instead of even doing a promise to use it to free the person, you use it to sink the person. Doing something like that in itself should be a criminal offense. Of course, there were other things. One witness who was actually coerced into going and giving false statements also, which should be taken into consideration. So all things considered, it is more than likely that over the coming days, But definitely by the end of August, Chucky Brown should be a free man. I look forward to seeing Chucky Brown released and of course be back in his job. And since National Heroes Day is gone from today, next year on National Heroes Day, he will step up before the Governor General and a medal of some kind be pinned on him for the number of decent people's lives that he has saved and the martyrdom he had been suffering for over a decade, languishing in prison. Of course, I'll keep you abreast of this development. Thanks for watching. Like, share, leave a comment below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.